Doing a great job, Prentice. Great job, Stellar.
Trying to make it as still as possible.
45 seconds, yeah.
Never have been before. Welcome to the surface of the moon. Welcome, Ultimate fans, to Ulti World's live streaming coverage of the 2019 High School National Invite, coming to you from Rockford, Illinois. Keith Rayner, joined by Sam Echeverria for the Girls Division Final. We've got Roosevelt from Seattle taking on Lone Peak from Utah. Two very different teams with very different backgrounds, but have been the most dominant teams at this tournament.
We've got number 1 and number 2 facing off in a match that will be sure to be really exciting here, especially as the wind has been picking up here in the afternoon at Rockford.
Yeah, we've had some really tremendous games, but mostly not involving these teams who have taken control of most of their matchups throughout the tournament. And this collision course, we're finally going to get to see the results when two teams who've crushed the competition go head-to-head.
This is what we've been tracking for all weekend, so going to be an exciting match for sure.
Lone Peak looks like they're going to start the game on defense in the whites, pulling to Roosevelt in the blacks.
We're about to get the first pull here of this last game of the tournament, a tournament that has seen a lot of action, a lot of great throwing, a lot of great skill field and athleticism from these girls teams.
And we are underway here for the girls final. And Roosevelt star Abby Hecko picks up to initiate. Gets it to Anna Gaddu, and she's going to put it out. And a quick score for Roosevelt. They waste little time. Tori Gray finds a target, and Aria Bacon-Kishner gets the goal to make it 1-0.
That was beautiful, clean, exactly the way you want to start out this game. Come out hot on offense, give a chance to get your D-line out here, and put them to work.
As we see, again, how quick this score took place. That was basically exactly as they want to run their offense. So if you are a fan of Roosevelt, you're happy to see the offense flowing so quickly.
And for that positioning, the wind is moving downfield in the direction that Roosevelt just went. So clearly the flip has been determined a bit by the wind. We're going to seeing interesting ways that pulls go off, interesting ways that the throwers have been adjusting all weekend to the gusts. They've been picking up, pretty forceful at other times, completely dying down. So it's been a throwers game out here all weekend long.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of zone defenses, plenty of teams testing the deep space, and we'll see if that trend continues in this game. So underway for our second point and first offensive point for Lone Peak. Just starting with Autumn Sanders. High throw caught by Kate Berry, and she rips a backhand to the end zone, and just as quick as Roosevelt, Lone Peak strikes Jane Leroy on the receiving end of the huck from Berry.
They're matching them 1-for-1 so far. We'll see if this trend continues. That was a great absolute huck, going down, beautiful read, outrunning, and just beyond the defender, but perfectly to her mark.
That was a bomb, too, from Barry, showing off the power, known for her speed, but there we see the junior, who's one of our players to watch, showing off her throwing ability as well. And developed that in just a little less than 2 years worth of playing. But I'm sure her teammate, Sadie Flannery, recruited to the team, is happy to see the impact that she's having.
It's always great when you can say, I brought that player onto this team, help build that talent up. Especially, folks, when you're at a younger level, once you fall in love with the sport, go out and try to get as good as you can at it.
Step pull out of bounds. And Lone Peak showing us the zone now. Hecko. Hecko back with the disc. Is 4 throwers back for Roosevelt. Working the disc around the cup with small throws right now. And then a big throw from Hecko that drops in. Anna Gaddu on the other end, and those two are a common connection. Gaddu coming down with that one for the score.
They had a strong Friday together, helping lead this O-line, certainly. Even with that mark and those 3 in that close formation up in the zone, wasn't enough to shut down the Roosevelt motion with all, again, those small passes in the hand there until they found their shot to Gaddu back there.
And sometimes those small passes open up the big throws as the defense collapses to you. And there, Hecko, one of our players to watch, the only U.S. national teamer here for the under-24 team. So even going an age group up, Hecko is an impressive force.
Yeah, she'll be playing with UW this upcoming fall. Exciting for her college career, certainly. Also played club last summer with Seattle Underground, one of the rising women's teams out in the Seattle scene. So expect to see a lot from her in this game and going forward.
Yeah, I think she's going to be very involved if the first couple of points tell you anything. But this is a talented squad that is going to rely on not just Hecko, who's one of the best players in the division, but look to really their depth to help them achieve their success. And a low throw to initiate for Lone Peak. Gives the disc to Hecko and Roosevelt to start. First chance at a break. High throw, and Hecko goes upstairs to get that one. Give and go with Hecko, and she brings it in. So a break for Seattle. Roosevelt takes the advantage over Lone Peak.
They really capitalized on that one execution error, the first execution error we've seen really from either offensive line happen. And there you can see tiptoeing it in with that up the line right near the sideline. Great awareness of the field and a bit of an exuberant cheer on that catch.
So Lone Peak, who gave up less points in their previous 2 games, or in semis and pre-quarters together, or in quarters. Yes, their previous 2 games. That's what I'm trying to say. In their previous 2 games, quarters and semifinals, gave up less points in those 2 games than they have in this game already. Obviously, the level of difficulty turning up a notch as they have to match up with Roosevelt.
True, if they make those execution errors, Roosevelt is going to punish them for it. So they need to have as clean an offense as possible. And really now they're going to be going upwind. So we'll see if they're able to dial it in to the throws, the catches that they need to score upwind.
Lone Peak winning their semifinal 15-1. And you do not see that in the bracket. That is very infrequent at a tournament of this level. Roosevelt, a tougher game with Holy Family. They won 12-8 in that matchup, but otherwise have been mostly unchallenged. Got a test out of Knoxville, I believe, in pool play. But right now with the early advantage against Lone Peak.
We're still here in the first 10 minutes of the game, and we've already got 4 points on the board. Definitely rapid pace game for sure.
Layout catch from Kira Kokrians. Sliding catch by Barry. Lone Peak showing off a horizontal stack right now. Barry on the give and go. Catch it on the second effort. Lone Peak has, I think, been able to just blow teams away with their speed and athleticism. As Barry goes cross field. Sadie Flannery comes underneath.
They've been doing a nice job getting separation from their matchups, individual person matchups, with that athleticism, but these low passes that are getting turfed are potentially very much going to start to hurt them if Roosevelt can convert for a second point here.
Yeah, if they're not going to find a way to slow down Roosevelt after the turn, they could be in trouble as Roosevelt puts up a huck on a Pettis on the other end of that, but couldn't come down with that. Barry able to get up the line, and then again trying to power that lefty backhand upwind. And a great catch by Saunders. Easy continue pass to Flannery for the goal. Autumn Saunders comes down with that and puts it in the end zone to make it 2-1.
That attempted help there on defense by Lucy Tanner almost had the disc, but then that left her matchup wide open to go get the disc there in the end zone. Lone Peak seems to be calming down a little bit and finding those matches. You can see there, almost had that interception, left her matchup for the score.
Sanders with a big height advantage in that matchup and uses it to great effect. So you pull that one out of the sky.
I love players who aren't afraid to go for those matchups, but it does make it harder to go your way.
Sam, always rooting for the little guy, so to speak.
Absolutely. As someone under 5'5" myself, you can see some great things done by a smaller player's size is just another way. Sometimes you got to use being short.
So Lone Peak now trailing Roosevelt, but showing they can get a turn off of the team out of Washington. Nikki Merrill getting set to pull, and you see one of the Roosevelt coaches, Khalif El Salam. And one of the things that we've talked about with a lot of the Seattle youth teams, Nathan Hale able to win the girls division last year, their boys team also in the final, is that they have so much access to the elite ultimate community in their youth environment. Charlie Eide also coaching with the team. She plays for Riot, has for a couple of years.
I was speaking with Charlie, and she and Khalif have coached Abby since middle school, since a middle school club team. It's that length, it's that familiarity with the game and the elite access that's just incredible.
Godu and Hecko play a little 2v2 to start. Layout catch by Bacon Kishner. But a turnover on the attempted reset. And now Kerr looking deep. And chasing after it is Kennedy Creer, but runs out of room.
Lone Peak did a really nice job tightening up on the handlers, leaving some other players out there to do more of the work in the area behind those handler defenders. Making it a little bit different of a zone look, trying to shut down really these key handlers who are getting the disc motion.
So Lone Peak running a zone that looks a bit like what we saw from their boys team in their semifinals loss. We'll talk more about it as this one goes towards the end zone, and a leaping attempt at a catch, but a bit too high of a throw from Melissa West. Hecko finds a hole up the middle. Now, Heracrafts Mazzanti with the disc. And this zone's going to be a 3-3-1 with kind of a wall up front, 3 defenders, but they are going to apply some pressure to one of the resets usually. One side of the field, they're really going to try and take away these resets, make difficult throws to one side, push the disc to the other. In effect, a force is that one's forced into the hands of Eakins. She swats it away. Kerr picks up. And that one beyond the reach of the intended target. Kerr struggling to get going offensively, but on the D-line, get a bit of freedom to take some shots.
Yeah, this zone is really proving successful. You could see Hecko pointing to her cutters the spaces she wanted them to occupy and come into. But still, a little bit of struggle to get that downfield motion going beyond what the handlers are able to provide in the backfield.
And Roosevelt takes a timeout. Tough spot to reinitiate play from. Near the sideline, close to your own end zone. We've seen teams struggle with that, particularly going upwind. But we'll see if Roosevelt can traverse that tricky terrain with more grace than some of the other teams we've seen attempt it.
Yeah, the top teams here, these are the ones that are going to be able to make that happen. Going upwind on the skinny sideline here of the fields.
And sideline starting to get a few more players here. We've got the girls' final followed by the boys' final. And there are no other games. Dinner's being served for the players. Some people are playing spike ball in the background, but the sidelines are starting to gather up a bit, and I think that's really going to change the atmosphere of this game as we get deeper into it. I think you know, as we look forward to the boys' final, it's surprising not to see either Lone Peak or a Seattle team. I think if you had asked, would one of those teams make the final beforehand, you probably would have said yes, but it'll be Berkeley out of California who has reached the final, and they'll face off with the Dinah from Minnesota.
Both exciting semifinals matches from the boys' side.
It's not quite 1 and 2, but in a very different story as both teams really had to fight their way here through tight matchups. So different, but great all the same. So reinitiating play now, and you can see how they're pressuring that reset with the switching of the front wall defense. But nice job by Roosevelt to get it away from the sideline. Now Mazzanti's got it up to Gadu. Plenty of time for Hecko to reel in the high throw. They continue to just kind of find holes in the middle by trying to pull defenders out with some smart cutting, creating more space for their teammates. And Roosevelt's doing a good job working it through their team, but that one gets away. Gadu with the overthrow. Merrill looking deep, fires the cannon, and the wind just pops that over the head of the intended receiver, Leroy.
One of the very familiar hazards of playing Ultimate in the Midwest. It's a beautiful putt, just too much, got bumped up there by the wind.
What's the elevation over in Utah?
I do wonder how those conditions, how different it is to be playing here. It's not particularly humid. We've got a little more cloud coverage, so it's cooling down. It's actually the perfect temperature to be running around.
Initiation for Gray. Bacon Kishner coming under. This is just not your typical defense. I think it takes a little bit of thought to figure out where you want to attack it from. And there's a lot of value in having a novel defense that teams don't practice against, that they're not used to seeing, don't get a chance to build positive habits against. There's something to be said for being a little bit different.
Absolutely. I think Roosevelt has been responding admirably, trying to find those spaces. It's when they get a little too excited or try to take a bite a little more than they can chew.
No lessons learned on the previous turnover for Merrill as she hucks it out of the back, but a lot of power, and it definitely seems to be the Lone Peak game plan to pick it up, be aggressive, make them go upwind, see if you can get a short field or come up with one of those hucks.
Definitely speaks to a confidence in their ability to play hard D,
I mean, when
get
you've
that
been
block.
more athletic than every team you've played against, it's reasonable to want to use this type of strategy.
Absolutely. They've got the athleticism, they've got the height, and there they even go with another interception.
Merrill picking off the huck. I was just thinking how Roosevelt has been pretty conservative offensively in this zone. Nothing conservative about this throw from Kerr, intercepted by Gadu. But given back.
Both teams have really gotten into a higher tempo here, looking to get the disc off quick, moving it.
Great reset defense by Roosevelt. Generates a short field and a potential fast break. Hecko's going to boost it with Merrill not back there. Jump ball. Well read by Gray. Best field position of this point for Roosevelt. And Gray puts out a great throw. An even better defense there from Eakins.
Definitely using height, using athleticism of Lone Peak. They've got the longest field that they've seen this point yet to go march down.
So our 15th possession of the game, or of the point, excuse me. It's two teams being forced to really grind through. And here's Merrill in power position, so no surprise to see her boost it. Will this one stay in bounds? Leroy on the back line. Toes it in, and what a hard-fought score for Lone Peak. They get the break and tie it up at 3-3.
That was a very critical point for this match, to get that break, come back. You can see their sideline is excited to be supporting their girls team here as they are playing a very well-engaged back and forth match.
And many of the top offensive players for Roosevelt were on that line. As you see Gadu trying to get there. But Merrill in power position, using the forehand this time. And great effort from Leroy to keep that in bounds.
Sometimes I think third time's the charm on that huck, as you're feeling the wind conditions and getting used to that. I think to your point earlier about Roosevelt's conservatism, it really seemed to benefit them in the zone. It's when they did try to get a few more yards than before that they really put off discs that their cutters weren't able to get to, that they weren't able to track down as easily and really come up against the height of Lone Peak just waiting.
Yeah, it's probably oversimplifying it, but I don't think that the jump ball foot race game is what Roosevelt wants to do against a team as athletic as Lone Peak. And I don't think the 60-pass skill game is what Lone Peak wants to do against Roosevelt. So it may come down to this kind of clash of styles and to see who can dictate the game more, who can force the other team out of their comfort zone.
Absolutely, forcing them out of those grooves, out of that chemistry.
Or conversely, it might just be who can ride through those really difficult patches, those patches where you're not able to do the first thing that you wanted when you have to go to your second or third look. Low pull from Lone Peak's going to give quality field position to Hecko and this Roosevelt offense. Rough Riders looking at matchup defense from Lone Peak. But still some poaching. And that throw a little too low for Gadu, and similarly low throw from Lone Peak results in back-to-back turnovers. Hecko getting the disc to Shire. And they're going to look into the end zone. And a great effort from Bacon Kishner, but empty-handed.
That was also incredible layout defensive effort by Barry for Lone Peak, but it just wasn't enough. But that pressure right there, keeping Roosevelt on their toes.
Lone Peak initiates Autumn Sanders. Garrett Galloway underneath. In the power position, Sanders looking to put it. And Flannery trying to come back to it. It's a little short-armed. Disc back to Roosevelt. Sarah Reichen swinging that. Nice soft break. That puts Gray in power position, but her throw well beyond the reach of her receiver. So another point starting to wear on.
Again, yeah, we're seeing the downwind team putting those hooks up, trying to get it down there, force the upwind team to really work it, which Lone Peak
Sanders' huck deflected by Hecko, but caught. But then Flannery's throw too far ahead of her receiver. A great opportunity for Lone Peak to score upwind. Will go by the wayside. Now here's Hecko with room and puts it up for Gadu. This is the kind of shot Roosevelt wants. One-on-one, but nicely defended. And it's Hecko coming from behind to the open side for the goal, and Roosevelt survives a tough point. Go up 4-3.
Hecko definitely very involved in that point, getting that to come in with that huck, and then with the patience coming to go get it there on the open side.
And I'm sure Roosevelt's glad to be able to get their offense off the field. But look at Gadu showing the wheels. She's got some big, long strides. Tracks that down, even against a speedster like Barry. And then just doesn't force anything.
Very patient. Nice put. Finds that space.
Hecko with, a 65-yard give and go there?
Approximately, yeah. And to your point, definitely Roosevelt looking here for their D-line. Make some waves, take some time. Get this point, obviously would be the best goal, but give their O-line some time to get their breath back after working very hard on quite a point.
Echo and Godu still out there for Roosevelt. And I would say that, I think that Lone Peak may have the advantage in this area from having played so many fewer points.
Mm-hmm.
They have, ran through the bracket today.
Yeah, in semifinals alone, Lone Peak played a total of 16 points, whereas Roosevelt played a total of 20 points. And that builds up over time.
Merrill gets things moving very quickly and then straight to the end zone for a quick hold and response by Lone Peak. Creer in the end zone to make it 4-4.
That looks like the clean Lone Peak offense that we saw at the very start of the game. No more low passes, just perfectly finding that cutter on that longer shot there.
And see Coach Dave Krupa, who's coaching both the boys and the girls clubs here, but Merrill just a freight train on that point. So Roosevelt probably a bit frustrated. You work so hard to get your hold and then come out on defense planning to make the other team grind for it. And Lone Peak just busting through the defense.
Lone Peak has found a lot of success with the deep game so far. And it's really that success that Roosevelt is going to have to play for. Of course, then if you give them the underlooks, they could just play short game and then work it all the way down. So their defense is going to need to definitely bolster up next time they get a shot. Of course, this one, they'll be looking for this downwind point coming up here.
So getting ready for the pull from Lone Peak. Roosevelt coaches clear the field. Lone Peak, is 135-2 in their last 137 games. That's laughable.
That's momentous.
Hecko with the low save. So a different zone look now from Lone Peak, who's sagging the lanes a little bit, but still trying to apply pressure to the resets, and there get a turn as that bounces off the hands of Godu, and Merrill apologizes as that throw sails out of bounds.
Looking for that quick break. Not meant to be in these windy conditions at that angle.
Hecko breaking the mark. Gray up to Godu. Tries to joystick the receiver a little bit and then a nice outside in break throw. And this Roosevelt team has great fakes. I mean, they're making hard, realistic-looking fakes, and that's
that
a
was
real
all
catch. Yeah, nothing fake about that. As Godu leaves her feet to come down with that one. It gets a hold for Roosevelt after a potentially scary situation. Instead, it's 5-4.
Roosevelt definitely looked more comfortable with that match defense one-on-one. Lone Peak, I think, worried them a little bit, to your point, of having an arsenal of different zone looks. A team that can really switch things up and doesn't play the same zone, and you have to constantly keep working to figure out how to break it and adjusting. That's a huge talent and a huge boon for Lone Peak, but on that one, Roosevelt was able to work through the person defense and really work that break side.
As you see the conditions here, wind has picked up a bit, up to 17 miles an hour. It's been gusting all day, so I would say this is some of the strongest gusts we've seen, but these teams don't look too bothered by it. And I want to go back and correct myself. I said nothing fake about that play. There was nothing fake about the catch, but set up by a great Hecko pivot threw that fake to the open side and stepped around on the break side to deliver an unfettered assist. And I think that it's another sign of that fundamental skill that these Roosevelt players have.
Absolutely. They're able to work their space, work their mark, and get those throws that they're looking for, and that their cutters know that they can cut for.
And many of these players, have been playing since middle school or even earlier. And I just don't think that's the case. It's interesting juxtaposition between the Roosevelt team from the vaunted Seattle community and the Lone Peak squad from the burgeoning Utah youth scene, which is getting a chance to really prove itself on the national stage. They're not often able to do that since so many tournaments wind down on Sundays when many players can't compete due to religious obligations. But here on a Friday-Saturday tournament, they're able to vie for national championship. And so you see a team where many of these players have been playing 2-3 years against players that have been playing 4 or 5 years.
And they're certainly holding their own here as they're out on offense.
I think there's a lot of pride on the line for both sides, particularly in their communities, as Galloway lays out to catch that one and potentially bends the disc upon reception. So now discussion about whether or not the teams can change discs. And Hecko probably feeling vindicated as she made them play with the same disc and a quick turnover.
Definitely exciting to see these discussions, teams talking it out, discussing everything. We're not featuring observers at this tournament. And so far from what I've seen, definitely the teams talking together and working issues out on the field.
I think it's good for young players to really utilize the system in front of them before they're able to have the extra layer of protection that observers can provide.
Absolutely.
And the long throw goes up, and a bid from Roosevelt. It's not going to be quite enough to get to it. Ellie Buchanan getting the ground for that, but Barry with this great catch by Sanders. She's come up with some tough grabs going up the line in particular. And a give and go there, but the throw from Flannery just too low. They've struggled a little bit with some of these forehands, keeping them level.
Definitely going downwind as well, a little bit more speed on them, just finding their way to the ground that much more quickly.
Some poaching from Lone Peak stagnates the Roosevelt offense, but an upline cut gets them a huck, but too high to be caught. Now a huck the other way, a wide open receiver, and coming down with it's Abby Davis. Mackenzie Swalberg sees Davis all alone and puts the backhand to her for the score to make it 5-5.
That was an incredible throw. I know I couldn't throw like that when I was in high school. Lone Peak, they're not afraid to stretch the field. In some cases, the stack would even be deeper than I'd anticipate, but they're making it work for them. They know what they can do, and they are hitting those deep shots.
Sometimes I find, you have that player who's really deep behind the defense, and you're kind of like, I don't have to worry about them. They're too far from the thrower. But if someone gets in a power position and suddenly they're 20 yards closer and have that extra power, you get a lot closer. And all of a sudden, when you were in position before, all of a sudden you aren't. Although that was just a standstill, unmarked huck in transition right there.
honestly, the game can change in a second like that, especially when you are a downfield defender.
Much to be gained from having a great sense of anticipation on defense. So Lone Peak back on defense. Each team with a break, but we've got 4 straight holds. And Sheena Titcomb on Twitter commenting that her Amazon device picking up Hecko as Echo. So sorry to anybody whose Alexa is turning on or whatnot. I guess I just turned them all on now. But.
There we go. Thanks for tuning in, though, to this live stream of the girls' final of the high school national invite.
Alexa, buy an Ulti-World subscription. I don't think that works, but it's worth a shot. Nice layout grab. Bacon Kishner's been aggressive in getting low to make tough grabs during this game. Now back over to Shire. And again, we're seeing that a little bit more of a conservative look to start in this zone, but then try and apply pressure. Great upline cut and put to the back cone. The layout catch looks like there's some discussion about whether or not she was in. Let's see if we can discern.
It seemed like she came down almost with kind of the square of her chest or her top of her legs. Oh, but knees.
It looks like a straddle to me. It looks like there's 2 points of contact, one in and one out. So, but from my vantage point, probably out of bounds, but our vantage point doesn't matter. 14 on the field figured out, and they agree to send it back. And Roosevelt quickly punched it in the end zone. It's a nice around break to make a Kishner for the score.
To your point earlier about youth division, those players learning to work through discussions and items themselves. Seems like a good call. Able to come to it quickly, but they weren't clear. Sent it back. Roosevelt still turned that into a clean look there, favoring that break side.
Gray getting her second assist, making Kishner getting her second goal, and both those connections have been together. So good chemistry so far. As we see the gathering crowd on the sideline, got parents, got players from other teams, alums of these programs. Be a fun environment, even a giant inflatable flamingo taking in this one.
Definitely a fun weekend for all, especially getting to see their teams play other teams that aren't in their high school leagues, in their high school environment at home. Everybody coming out for high school national invite.
And I imagine for many parents, this is their first time seeing other schools play in such a different style. You get so used to seeing the teams in your area, these familiar players, hearing the same lingo. But now you're playing against teams from totally different communities who've developed in different ways with different tactics, different language, different athletes. And it's got to be very interesting for parents, athletes, coaches alike.
That is one of the great things about tournaments that bring together teams from different parts of the country. You get to see all kinds of things that you haven't seen before, get to play against some new looks, and really test yourselves against the best of the best.
Merrill takes the centering pass just short of midfield. Steps around for a long break side gainer. West resets to Merrill. Just matchup defense now, and getting to watch Merrill and Hecko go one-on-one. Should be a lot of fun, and Merrill's throw contested by Gray. So it'll be Hecko and Roosevelt's disc.
Definitely those adjustments by Hecko on the mark. First one let off a break, second one open side, but too much. So slight tweaks to her form there.
Hecko gets a nice reset cut from Mazzanti, and she's able to work it to the break side. Godu putting it out for Mazzanti. Soars through the air for that catch, and the continue pass just sails over the head of her receiver. Mazzanti taking flight for one of the plays of the game so far. And now deep shot from Merrill. And trying to go bid for bid. Jane Leroy can't quite come up with that one.
Yeah, that Roosevelt bid. Moving, changing angle, layout, incredible to watch.
So a full 70 now for Roosevelt, and Hecko taps it in. Nice grab by Gray. But her throw sails into the crowd. So good field position now going downwind for Lone Peak. Although, hey, if you turn it over short field, they can't huck it.
Very true, very true. Makes them have to look other options and avenues to getting it to the end zone. Although if she really wants the back corner huck, she could probably pull it off.
Now growing cross field for Kerr. Just takes off up the line. And then right back to Kerr, but knocked away by Pettis. A great defensive play by Pettis, coming up big on the doorstep.
That is the hole that you need if you want to have a chance at getting a break here.
Godu with a big hole in the middle. Was that saved by Gray? Discussion about whether or not it was caught or on the ground first. Really tough to say. I think I would be inclined to say up, but I think sending it back is a pretty reasonable conclusion here. I think it's going to be really difficult for either side to really make a strong case.
Yeah, it seemed to stop rotation as well as skim the ground nearly at the same time. So
if you made me pick, I'd say up, but I think sending it back is the right call. Hecko gets open for the reset from Mazzanti. And then her throw into the middle comes up short, and Merrill's looking to go off to the races, as she is wont to do.
Again, that huck and play D look, or just huck and score.
Great job of containment by Roosevelt, and then the hand block by Buchanan.
That's huge, especially now that they've got only half the field to work up.
And confusion from Lone Peak about what kind of defensive set they want to get into. But that throw towards the end zone, again looking for Godu, and she has had to work real hard in this game. Merrill looking deep, gets it to Leroy. Merrill hustling after her to get it back. And then across field to multiple open targets and a quick strike from Lone Peak. These points have been battles. It is a hold, but they'll take it.
Yeah, and a lot of these, we've seen players like Odu, Merrill, Hecko out on the field point after point after point. Again, to the fact that Lone Peak hasn't played as many points this weekend just because they cruised through earlier parts of the bracket. Makes you wonder what kind of legs Hecko, Gadu, and the rest of the Roosevelt team has at this point compared to a relatively more rested Lone Peak.
And Merrill, I don't think, has played any offensive points for Lone Peak so far. I mean, Hecko and Gadu and Gray, they've had to play a lot. And, Merrill's been distributing that load with some of the other key throwers, Autumn Sanders, Kate Berry. And I think that's something to keep an eye on as we get further in this game. However, it is one game. It's definitely possible that you can grit through or just be the fitter, more focused team. And you can see that on the scoreboard. I mean, it's even. But I don't know if Lone Peak has not been pushed like this before. Certainly not in this type of pressure environment.
Yeah, this is a season-ender tournament here. You're going to push as hard as you can, leave everything that you have left on the field. But this is definitely likely a different experience for Lone Peak compared to their usual play, and definitely compared to the rest of the tournament.
I mean, they've lost once this season, and it was just to a combo club team out of North Carolina called Ember. And that's the second time they've lost in like 135 games, 137 games. So really just a remarkable, unbelievable record that they've put together. So they're not used to having to play tight games. I think of all of those wins, only 7 of them were by 4 points or less, according to their coaching staff.
Wow.
So, I mean, they are used to completely dominating the opposition. Not dominating against a team as good as Roosevelt, although Gadu's throw tails out of bounds.
Away! Away!
And low throw can't be saved. Again, we've seen that forehand trouble Lone Peak a couple times, that kind of short 15-yard forehand.
Yeah, they're able to get the hook off, but sometimes that little bit more necessary precision struggling.
And a great curling cut from Godu. She's been very effective around the red zone. She gets a hold to make it 7-6 as the wind kicks up. She finds the end zone for the third time this game.
She's definitely been a big component for this Roosevelt offense. Finding that space, grabbing the disc, great backhand by Hecko as well. Just that Hecko-Gadu connection coming in, dialing in.
You mentioned Hecko heading to Washington next year. Godu will probably see Hecko many times on the field as she'll be playing with British Columbia. UBC often recruited well from the Canadian scene, but every once in a while pulls a big American recruit.
This will definitely be a great pickup. I'm excited to see any of these players that also go attend Division III schools as well. For example, Leona Minotero will be attending University of Portland. Portland Uproar, one of the teams that made it to Division III national championships this year.
I wonder how far away we are from a big-time D3 school out of Utah. I don't know how many D3 schools there are in Utah. It seems like a state where almost all the schools feel huge, but there must be some, right?
There must be some in the woodwork that are just waiting to come out.
All it takes is a couple recruits, but that ultimate scene is just so big and constantly expanding.
Yeah, it's definitely on the rise, a region that is growing and gaining momentum.
Note to self to look up if there are D3 schools in Utah. Or, you know what, if you're out there on Twitter and you know the answer, feel free to tweet at us.
Absolutely. I always love to hear more about D3 schools that we could see with the right recruit, with the right coaching combination, we can see schools go from bottom of regionals to attending nationals and really making an impact. It can be as much as a single player or a single coach to make the difference.
So here, if Roosevelt can break, they will take half. But we've seen some of all the teams. I mean, I would say that Lone Peak has probably had a bit cleaner of their high points on offense. I don't know if we've seen Roosevelt go out and just hold really efficiently since their first 2 holds.
Definitely not as clean as the first few points, but lots of play, lots of high energy.
Flannery gets up the line in a power position and then hangs it back in, and it gets over the defense. And just as we had discussed, a quick score. Davis on the receiving end. So either way, whoever scores this one will take the half.
A momentary change, and again, Lone Peak hanging out deep. Defender out of position for that. Power position is definitely the right word for what Lone Peak is accomplishing.
But it's Roosevelt going downwind and receiving, so you have to say they're favored to score this one as we're still on serve.
Lone Peak will have to work very hard to get this, see if they can get a first throw defensive block, try to shut it down, make them do lots of small passes or bait them into one of those longer looks that hasn't been quite as effective for Roosevelt.
And as is pretty typical for Lone Peak, pretty much all of their recruits are staying in state. Headed to BYU, Utah State. And this year was a year in which we thought that BYU team might really break out on the D1 women's scene. Didn't quite live up to that expectation, but it feels like it's only a matter of time. In fact, Utah may have been the stronger side. They made a little bit of noise this year.
They should be very excited to pick up any of these Lone Peak girls. And Roosevelt looking to take half.
I mean, last year West was here and out of Utah. They were a very strong side as well. Bacon Kishner underneath. Then over to Shire. Bacon Kishner just so active, cuts so hard. Able to get open repeatedly and then go to pass the bidding Leroy. This has been a great possession for Roosevelt. Shire with a little hop step goes up the line and takes the half for Roosevelt. A clean hold to put an exclamation point on the half. They take control of this one 8-7.
It's been a few points since we've seen such a clean hold out of Roosevelt. Bacon Kishner getting lots of great separation, in some ways being very squirrely underneath, getting that space off of her defender Merrill there. Maybe it even helps that she's a bit shorter than Merrill, able to get in there and get the disc.
We see some of the top plays from the first half. Roosevelt with an 8-7 lead over Lone Peak. Stay tuned to find out who will be the 2019 High School National Invite Girls Division Champion. Huge layout block. Mary fakes open some room and then small balls his way into the end zone.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about. with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
And welcome back to UltiWorld's live coverage of the 2019 High School National Invite. Roosevelt with an 8-7 lead in the girls' final over Lone Peak. As we see in the distance, the Berkeley boys team warming up for the boys' final at 5 o'clock.
That'll be, an exciting game coming up here shortly. 5 p.m. Central out here in Rockford, Illinois. Weather conditions are cooling down a little bit. We've got some cloud cover, still nice and gusty. Going to be exciting to warm up those throws, make sure that they're feeling the wind and what they're looking for here.
They'll take on Edina from Minnesota in that final, but first, what appears to be a very exciting second half in store between Roosevelt and Lone Peak. Hotly contested. We got a couple of breaks, one for each side, but two very talented and well-matched teams in the first half. So we get the second half underway with Lone Peak receiving going downwind.
They're also down. They probably don't experience this very often coming out of half. So we'll see how they respond.
And a high throw to start and a lot of contact. We'll see if there is any sort of call here. It does look like the two teams are going to agree that there was a foul. So Sanders keeps possession. Now it's about 15 yards outside the end zone. Wide swing. Hecko on the attack. Skies for the grab. Now looking to fast break. Autumn Kishner. And her throw out of reach. Deep shot from Sanders. Another jump ball. Leroy with the read. And the layout score.
Leroy has been a favorite target there in the end zone. We saw earlier in the game some drop passes, some overshoots with the wind zipping downwind, but that was a beautiful extension. Went and got the disc.
And a great read by Jane Leroy here. Positions a little early, that brings the defense, and then pushes off late in the throw's trajectory. And that extra room, and then extends for the pancake grab.
That extension, her defender not even following, not in the right spot for that. Well read. And we're tied game again at 8 as we click down here.
So the second half begins as the first half ended with a hold, although a hotly contested one.
That clean offense coming out again to play. Defensive pressure there, certainly, but not defensive lines getting those turns that they're looking for.
So Roosevelt picks up. Hecko early around, double bid. Caught by Pettis. Hecko again delivering that around backhand. Lucy Tanner looking to reset. Gets it to Shire on a second look, and now Hecko to the end zone, but out of bounds. So Lone Peak with a chance to go upwind.
Hecko and Roosevelt definitely like that horizontal stack look, creating lots of wide windows, able to get that off two players like Tanner, Pettis, and others. and finding those spaces for those throws to really connect.
Hecko with her 6th throwaway in this game, and there Barry slips as she comes under and knocked away by Pettis.
Wasn't going to take any chances, make sure that disc was down and out.
So a great short field opportunity for Hecko and Roosevelt. Hecko getting through 3 different cuts and then just pops it to Davis. And what a catch by Shire. Maybe a stall call here, bringing the disc back.
That was quite some time. Trying to be patient as none of the pitchers really get open. Strong match defense.
You see that?
Shotzi Shire with an excellent grab that's either going to be a score or a possession saving one. And they go right back to the same look, and much easier this time, although still a tough grab. And Shire comes down with it with the left hand, a little tiptoe, take a 9-8 lead.
Interesting that she kept looking for that repeat to Shire there. Just that little bounce of the disc up and over. If it works, don't break it.
Hecko so effective with that around backhand, and there Barry trying to make a play on it. And Hecko finishes it off. She gets her 4th assist of the game to go with 2 goals. So very involved. And this played nearly every point for Roosevelt, if not every point.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the same faces for Roosevelt. Roosevelt out there leading the line, keeping that offensive and defensive pressure set.
So we see Hecko directing this Roosevelt defense. Given her vast experience, it's no surprise that her teammates look to her for advice and leadership.
Absolutely, a senior player, well experienced, lots of ultimate under her belt. Cool under pressure.
Merrill, a little bit dangerous on the early swing. Swalberg comes down with it. Into traffic, but caught. And 3 throws, all of them felt like they could have been turnovers, but instead it's a hold. Lone Peak finds Leroy for 9-9.
And soft cap here has just gone on. It'll be a game to 11. To your point, all 3 of those did feel rather tenuous, but Lone Peak has dialed in precision, the attention paid to making sure the disc goes all the way into your hands, catch it. That's all you need. Game of throws and catches.
Well, the onus now on Lone Peak. I mean, they're going to need an upwind break here at some point. And it's been a little while, it feels like, till we've gotten a real great upwind threat. I feel like the last one I can recall is Mazzanti had that big layout catch and then put the backhand cross field and went out of bounds. I think that feels like that's the closest the team has gotten, and it's been a little while since that. So I think that was back 6s maybe?
Roosevelt definitely would love to keep just playing hold, hold, hold ball all the way to a win. But we'll see. Lone Peak, if they can get the defensive pressure, stifle Roosevelt's offense, they might have a shot.
It's just 2 or 3 points away from deciding the 2019 High School National Invite Champion. And a hand block gets the short field break opportunity, or midfield at least, and gotten right back. What an exchange. Sarah Ryken and Maddie Kerr just swapping hand blocks. And that throw deflected, but ultimately dropped.
So close, seemed to be a bit of surprise there to Roosevelt.
And earned back, and the defense has been stifling in this one. And a big layout. Another one from Mazzanti. And her high release back into the end zone is caught by another bidding Roosevelt player. What a point, Sam.
That was incredible. Roosevelt there brought out their end zone vertical look, even though they were a good 10 yards outside the end zone, but they were able to work it, move through that, and that bid just to capture it. Not quite the fast break attempt that anybody had wanted, with those pair of hand blocks being traded back and forth. But they were able to settle into a rhythm and make it happen.
Big play at a big time. It's Roosevelt 1 point away from winning this year's High School National Invite.
It would feel real good to have an upwind break right about now. And Lone Peak looking to tie it up, bring it to double game point.
Which I think we all deserve at this point.
I personally would love to see that, certainly. Top two teams facing off. One more point of ultimate for the 2019 high school season.
Roosevelt D-line, of course, led by Hecko. Lone Peak offense bringing Merrill over.
We've got Leroy, deep shot, very likely.
Sensing that late in this game, I mean, this is basically a lot of the players have been playing defense for that.
Yep, this has got to be a hold.
Season on the line now. Sanders steps for the around, and the poach block by Hecko. And now the deep shot for Gadu, and she brings it in.
An exuberant spike, joyous with that point, going to win 11-9. And that upwind break, they made it happen. That incredible elevation that Hecko got there. Fingers just grabbing the rim of the disc on that reset.
Who else but Hecko and Godu for that one? And a hard-fought victory for Roosevelt. We're tested multiple times this weekend, but a passing grade. They will be this year's 2019 High School National Invite champions. Another year of Seattle supremacy here in the girls division.
Lone Peak, though, should be very proud of themselves. They definitely grinded it out with Roosevelt. They had a lot of great offensive looks. Really, that upwind break got them. And in the start, cleaning up some of the play there.
Yeah, only broken twice in this one. A really tremendous final, and the final score of the High School National Invite Championship game. Roosevelt, your champions, with an 11-9 victory over Lone Peak. That's going to do it for our coverage of the girls division here. So stay tuned. 5 p.m. we have a boys division final between Edina and Berkeley. We will see you there.